If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we are back on this Sunday evening. Welcome to Survival Dispatch. I'm John Wheaton, your host for this evening. And if you guys are in the Midwest, you're still aware that summer is still going on. It was a heat index of over 105 to 110 this weekend, and that's fun. But welcome. Hopefully you're in your air conditioning and it's working, and we're going to jump in to the subject for tonight. But before we do, as always, I am joined by my partner, Mr. S2, and we have a lot to discuss. How are you tonight, brother?
Last month, I made $40 billion working from home. Let me show you how with my brand new program.
Yes, I'm a paid actor by some nefarious people. But we're not here to talk about Vladimir Zelensky. We are here to talk about Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood and its connections to organizations like CAIR and how those tentacles expand into our government and all of the above, and why we have not declared this Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. So let's get into it. But before we do, we always start with the conflicted question and all of our other orders of the evening. So without further ado, Mr. S2, go ahead and give us that conflicted question. Save until the end what your answers are going to be, but think about it. And we'll give you our answers, and hopefully we'll see some of your answers in the chat. Last time it was a little lackluster, so I want to see you guys responding in the chat what your answers are. Take it away, S2.
Okay, this is the long one. Stick with me, people. Here we go. You've been preparing for a complete collapse of modern civilization with 3 other families, sacrificing yourselves financially to ensure the survival of your loved ones. Combined, you all have about a year's worth of supplies at a secured survival retreat. You were the last one to arrive at your location, and to your surprise, 2 of the families broke protocol and brought with them extra friends and families members, enough to shave off 40% of your supply timeline. Your retreat is somewhat new, and renewable food sources won't be ready before the food runs out. How do you handle this situation?
Well, we always have a quandary, it seems like, with the conflicted question. So save your answers until later on in the show, and we'll come back to that question. Real quick, before we get into our main topic, join the crusade by signing up for a free Substack account. It's how you guys get the Saturday Watch Guide, which comes out and tells you guys everything that we've covered from the Sunday evening show all the way to the Friday evening show. We are live every evening. It also gives you links and descriptions, as well as the thumbnails for each broadcast, so you guys can keep up. That way you never miss an episode. You never miss when we are live or when we have content coming out, which is the number one way that the powers that be in big tech keep us suppressed, is not letting you guys know when we are online. So fight back by going over and signing up for that free Substack account today. It doesn't cost anything, and it gives you that for absolutely free. Also use code EATMEAT for 10% off at carnivault.com. Carnivault makes amazing freeze-dried raw meat that you can cook like it is just regular meat after you reconstitute it, of course. And that is a very, very big advantage if you are doing preps, because it gives you real fresh meat like you just went to the store and bought it. So you can cook it with your favorite recipes. Go check out Carnivault. at carnival.com.
Yeah, eat
All
meat.
right. Eat meat. All right. Beavis is still here. So our main topic tonight is Hamas. And Hamas has stated that it is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood supports and funds terrorist acts. So why haven't they been declared a terrorist organization? We're going to dig in with clear, actionable analysis and help our preparedness-minded conservative Christian community protect home country and their churches. So here's a quick frame up for all of you guys for tonight's question of why haven't they been designated a terrorist organization. When violent networks hide behind charities, politics, and foreign policy games, families pay the price. And this is a big deal when it comes to things like the Muslim Brotherhood, CAIR, and Hamas, and how they're all interconnected. Remember, over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about how the radical Islamic terrorist organizations are all now working together. Well, this is not necessarily something that's new. It is a very, very common thing that has happened for decades. In all honesty, they help and aid each other out, even though they have different ideologies or different versions of the same ideology. So we want to demand moral clarity from the leaders who are sworn to defend us and the innocent in this country. So we're going to dig into this, and we're going to start. Before I get started, S2, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right. So we're going to get started with a thread from Data Republican. If you guys don't follow this account on X, fantastic, good analysis. And this is a thread we're going to read through to set the stage for tonight, and then we're going to show you some of the receipts. So the thread is CAIR Muslim Brotherhood Hamas pipeline. They don't want you to see. This thread has been a long time coming. Let's start with a simple fact. In 1988, in its 1988 charter, Hamas openly declares itself a Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. So here's the question. Why hasn't the U.S. designated the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization? Seems obvious, right? Here's my question. Here's my answer. If the Muslim Brotherhood is formally labeled a terror group, then CAIR, founded by the leaders from the Muslim Brotherhood's U.S. network, gets implicated too. And if CAIR is implicated, then if CAIR gets implicated, then so do a lot of politicians, and that's the line no one in DC wants to cross. So instead, the Muslim Brotherhood stays undesignated. CAIR keeps the civil rights label and keeps its tax advantage nonprofit status. And the public is left in the dark. Patience as I pull receipts. So here are some of the receipts, and we'll get into these in a little bit of detail. This is CAIR, and you can see some of our favorite politicians on this. There's a senator from Illinois, Dick Durbin. There is Raphael Warnock. There is good old communist Bernie Sanders, Pocahontas. Many of the big names that you see on the nightly news on the Democratic side are connected with CAIR. So
there's a lot of dicks in there.
There are. Also, Gavin Newsom met with CAIR representatives in December of last year. So let's get into the meat of this. CAIR was co-founded by Nahad Awad and Omar Ahmed. Awad is a public relations director of the Islamic Association for Palestine, IAP, an organization that was convicted of providing material support for the terrorism in the United States and has since been dissolved. We will get to some receipts on that very soon. Sorry, it's hard to trace sources. I am finding out that a lot of the information about Awad and Ahmed are censored. For example, Ahmed's Wikipedia page is nearly empty.
Well, it is CIA after all.
Right. Where Awad and the Islamic Association for Palestine, IAP, Public Relations Director Omar Ahmed was its president. IAP was one of 3 subsidiaries of the Palestine Committee, all aimed at supporting Hamas. So, a couple of, and I will urge you guys to go look at this thread. There are multiple threads that Data Republican puts out, but this one's very, very important for the context of tonight's show. So CAIR founders Ahmed and Awad were intimately tied to the implication pro-Hamas IAP and under the Palestinian Committee umbrella, where Palestine... What is the Palestine Committee? Well, it was formed by the Muslim Brotherhood to advance the cause of Hamas in the United States. Palestine Committee consists of 3 sub-organizations. IAP, which is the all-purpose public-facing organization. Occupied Land Fund, which later became the Holy Land Foundation, HLF. We'll show you some information on that. Remember, this is just laying the groundwork for everything that we're going to show tonight, which was the financial organization in the United Association of Studies and Research, UASR, as its think tank. Here's the background of Hamas and Palestine Committee, 1987, in the Palestinian region, and placed sanctions on Hamas. The United States placed sanctions on Hamas in 1995, and in 1997 designated it a foreign terrorist organization. So these are all connected. CAIR claims that it does not receive foreign funding, but that is a lie. We know of at least one instance where CAIR received $250,000 from a Saudi bank. Showing here, the thread. So we're going to jump over to another this thread continuing here. After AIP, our IAP fell away due to the FBI wiretapping in 1993. Nahad Awad and Omar Ahmed founded CAIR and to challenge stereotypes of Islam. They were joined by a third member, Rafiq Jabbar, who also has been the IAP president. Holy Land Foundation transferred money to CAIR and on its founding. The internal memo presented to the Holy Land Foundation case shows that CAIR is considered a part of the Palestine Committee itself. So yes, CAIR is Muslim Brotherhood. Federal documents show that CAIR is indeed founded by Muslim Brotherhood leaders, and it conspired with other affiliates of the Muslim Brotherhood to support terrorists. The Obama administration would legitimize CAIR to shield it, meeting with them hundreds of times. John Brennan, familiar name there, ordered the purge of bias training materials that portrayed Muslims in a negative light. That was removed from law enforcement training, by the way. But it was not just Obama. President George W. Bush stood with Nahad Awad himself at a mosque a few days after 9/11 in a press conference to condemn rising anti-Muslim sentiment. Obama DNI James Clapper, another familiar name, famously labeled the Muslim Brotherhood as secular. So that's a key term that is used to keep you from firing off warning shots about radical Islamic terrorists. I cannot overemphasize to what extent CAIR is deeply involved in Washington politics. Awad being a high-dollar donor to Nancy Pelosi is one example. Bullfrog 35 has documented many instances where high-ranking Democratic officials have spoken to CAIR and accepted CAIR awards or displayed CAIR letters in their offices. DHS met with CAIR on civil rights issues. DHS, in 2002, Saudi Prince Al-Walid Talal, and I apologize, I am not good with Middle Eastern names, Donated
Just call him Ben,
$500,000.
just call him Ben Talal.
Okay. Bin Talal. Donated $500,000 to CAIR. He was famously arrested by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman shortly after the 2017 Vegas mass shooting. Talal allegedly owned the top 5 floors of the Mandalay Bay and that is subject of numerous conspiracy theories for that event. CAIR
And one of them, those conspiracy theories, happened to be a conspiracy to assassinate the Crown Prince.
Yes. CAIR itself is explicitly an unindicted conspirator in the scheme to funnel millions to Hamas. Documents mention that the United Arab Emirates bin Hamud Group and the UAE Minister of Finance Hamdan bin Rashid finance CAIR. CAIR is also approached Saudi Arabia. Sorry, I keep on putting my cursor over that and it keeps popping up. Saudi Arabia for $50 million, although the outcome of that isn't clear. It wouldn't be a Data Republican thread if I didn't point out that, yeah, Soros backed CAIR. As I mentioned before, many Democratic officials cooperate with CAIR. Mamdani welcomed them. So that's the current front runner for the New York City mayor position. Minnesota AG Keith Ellison, a very familiar name for us, explicitly endorses CAIR. Most recently, CAIR welcomed the July 2025 Hijab on the Hill event involving Congressional Muslim Staff Association. I will wrap this thread up for now, but make no mistake, Hamas is Muslim Brotherhood. CAIR is Muslim Brotherhood. CAIR is financed by foreign organizations. CAIR is deep in the Washington or in the machine of DC politics. The Democratic Party has foreign operative problem. Okay, so we're going to end that there and discuss really quickly. There's a lot of information there, and we're going to get into each one of these nuggets so that you guys are very, very aware of what's going on, including the history and the charter of Hamas. S2, overall, what is your take on everything that we just read?
Well, being the fact that I've studied this for a good number of years, I'd say it's pretty factual. What a lot of people don't understand is going all the way back to the IAP. There was Omar Ahmed, who was director of public relations, or pardon me, was represented by its president of Omar Ahmed, its director of public relations, Nihad Awad, and the head of their Washington office, Akram Karoubi, who later became the Holy Land Foundation representative in Ramallah. Here's where things get a little twisty. The Holy Land Foundation, also known by the initials HLF, the founder and president, Shukri Abu Bakr, whose brother Jamal was the head of Hamas in Sudan and later in Yemen. So a lot of these folks are joined at the hip by blood ties. They're not necessarily organizational ties. So being the fact that you have these people that are tied by blood and that they are Hamas in other countries is an indicator that everything that Data Republican has pointed out is absolutely true. And like I said, we've talked about conspiracy theories about the bin Talal conspiracy to assassinate the Crown Prince, and it was no mistake that he was in the hotel the night of the Las Vegas shooting.
You mean the shooting that we never got a conclusive final report on?
Yeah, and probably never will.
Right. That got buried faster than than a dog that you're trying to hide from the owner. But yeah, it's the tentacles of this is crazy, and I know there's a lot of talk about these foreign entities. Obviously, APAC is one of those, and I don't like APAC. I actually hate APAC, and I hate any kind of foreign entity that has any kind of tentacles into our government, because no foreign country should be actually telling us how to run our country. But it's a two-way street. There are two sides here that are clearly financing and putting their hands on the scales of how our government is run.
Oh, this has been going on. This has been going on since the '80s. This is not a secret.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, and it started in Minneapolis.
Yeah. Talk about that for a minute as I pull up this next article. The starting of that in Minneapolis. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay.
Is there a question?
Anyway, yeah, I was saying, elaborate on that starting in Minneapolis. What you're referring to there?
Well, like everything else, they started at the lower levels in politics with county commissioners, and from there they moved into police departments. You had police chiefs and sheriffs that were openly supporting the Islamic. I want to call it the revolution, because that's really what it is. But this, like I said, this has been going on since the 1980s, and it's been no secret. Just kind of like it was no secret that Hitler was conspiring with the Muslim Brotherhood back in World War II, and Winston Churchill kind of knew about it.
Yes. So, anyways, moving into, this is actually the 1988 Hamas covenant. So this is August 18th, 1988. So around this time of year in 1988, and what they were basically their charter, what they were going to be known for. And this is obviously not going to read all of this, but this is where they basically talk about how they are going to wage jihad and resistance across the Middle East, and having charters in Africa and all of these other countries as well. So this actually is a very good comprehensive article on this from the Wilson Center, talking about since its creation in December 1987, Hamas has invoked a militant interpretation of Islam to spearhead the Sunni extremist movement committed to destroying Israel. Hamas distanced itself from a longstanding Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, the umbrella organization for disparate Palestinian factions and that ranged from Marxist to secular nationalist. It propagated resistance in the religious context of jihad, or holy struggle of martyrdom. Jihad is the path and death for the sake of Allah. It is the loftiest of its wishes. Hamas said that in its first statement in the late 1980s. Predominantly Shiite Iran has armed, trained, and funded Hamas since the late 1980s, largely due to its opposition to Israel and Islamic ideology. So I'm not going to read this whole article, but it is pretty clear that they lay out that their first charter is to war against Israel and war against the West. So that is who Hamas is. S2. With this in mind, how does the Hamas doctrine define its in-state and methods by which it will carry out that? Its end goal, basically.
Well, in the infamous words of Omar Ahmad, he said, Islam isn't in America to be equal. but dominant. The Quran should be the highest authority in Islam, the only accepted religion. Islam aims to conquer, not assimilate, needing just 2% of the population to pave the way for Sharia law within years. The alleged plan is to replace the U.S. Constitution with Sharia law, using American laws against the nation, posing a significant danger to the U.S. People need to start paying attention.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what's really interesting is they don't hide this. It's like we're ignoring somebody saying, hey, I'm gonna rob your house. They're standing outside our front door with a gun and a ski mask on, saying they're going to rob us, and we're not locking the door, and we're not loading our gun to fight back. That's essentially what American politics has done with this.
Well, the simple reason for this is because, one, our politicians started out because they wanted to be politically correct. That was their cover story. It wasn't about being politically correct. It was because they were compromised. They were given money by these people. They accepted money from these people to do things in Congress that they wanted them to do. And here we are. I mean, for instance, Joe Biden and John Cornyn and a bunch of other people headed up the legislation to make it possible for Muslims to take part in our government. There was a law against that for the very longest time, and they eradicated that.
Wasn't that eradicated during Obama's presidency?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, it was before. It was before.
Well, and as we read that thread, you heard some very familiar names: John Brennan, James Clapper. All of those people involved heavily in the basically normalizing of CAIR.
Well, John Brennan is a Muslim convert.
Yeah. So with that in mind, yeah, exactly. So with that in mind, I'm going to share this, which is this is from the U.S. State Department. This is basically the webpage with foreign terrorist organizations, and you can see, obviously, you can see more recently, Tren de la Agua, ISIS in like 2018, in the Philippines, Bangladesh, Al Qaeda, Indian subcontinental. But if you go all the way back here to 1997, Hamas was designated a terrorist organization, and on October 8th, 1997, Al Qaeda was 2 years later on the same day. So around the same thing, or you'll see Hezbollah was at the same day. Palestinian Liberation Front, all of these organizations were designated that on October 8th, 1997. So they were among the first organizations to be designated as terrorist groups. So for the sake of our audience, what are the consequences of being designated a terrorist organization when it comes to the United States? What does that actually mean, that we designated somebody a terrorist organization, and what are the implications of that for people that don't know?
There's a whole lot of things. Number one, you cannot perform any financial transactions within the United States. That would be one. Two, anybody that is actually directly tied to them that is in government now would be removed. That would be one thing. They would never be allowed to hold any sort of political office ever. I mean, basically, if we look at money laundering schemes and all of those types of implications that go along with it, it's pretty much the same rules. You would have sanctions against you, all sorts of things, and anybody caught doing business with them would have severe penalties.
Yes. And so that's why the reason that I asked for that designation, you did it brilliantly, is this is why Muslim Brotherhood, implicating Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, and by proxy, CAIR would be involved in that. it would destroy the ability of terrorist organizations to funnel money from inside the United States to their tentacles in the Middle East and across the world, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So with that, so that this is an important point, and probably the first really big point that I wanted to make when we're tying all of these loose ends together with CAIR, Muslim Brotherhood, and Hamas. There's a very high likelihood, and I would say with a pretty high amount of confidence, that money is flowing out of the United States to this day and making its way to Hamas, as well as other organizations in the Middle East that have nothing in mind other than destroying the West, and that's that's sobering, to say the least. So we did talk about the $500,000 that was donated by Talal. Let me share this real quick. Here is an article basically laying out that chairman of Kingdom Holding Company has donated $500,000 to the Council of American Islamic Relations, CAIR. So when they say that they were not financed by foreign entities, they are and still are to a certain extent. So what is being done? Is there anything being done within our Congress that shows that we're trying to actually do something about this?
Well, I believe
yeah.
MTG actually brought legislation to the floor to designate them as an FTO.
So there's two, one in Congress. So
Nancy Mace did it.
Yep. So Nancy Mace on it looks like June 10th of this year introduced HR 3883. Muslim Brotherhood is a Terrorist Organization Act of 2025. So this is still in committee. So it is in the Judiciary Committee currently, but it has been introduced. Likewise, Senator Ted Cruz also introduced a bill in the Senate, Muslim Brotherhood Terrorist Organization Designation Act of 2025. This has been introduced on the floors of both houses. So first thing that we could do is we need to call senators and congressmen in our states and our jurisdictions, tell them that we want this passed. This is actually a very, very serious thing. We don't want to be funding terrorism. And I know there was a lot of very, very justified anger about what was revealed on the Sean Ryan podcast several months ago, that we were still sending millions of dollars to the Taliban and Al Qaeda, just dropping off money for them in Afghanistan. Well, this is another form that we are funding this, and it's just really the opening up the pipeline so that they can be funded through NGOs, shell organizations, all of these kind of stuff. In fact, I know that there were some questionable things that showed up in the USAID stuff, and that was released by Elon Musk earlier on this year, that showed money flowing to foreign entities. So this is a serious problem, and it needs to be dealt with. So S2, your thoughts on what kind of practical effect that this bill would have for prosecutions and sanctions for the people that are involved and have been involved for, it looks like, years?
So basically, the criminal penalties for supporting terrorist organizations is a federal crime under 18 USC 2339B. It includes even indirect support, such as fundraising or propaganda. The violators of that would face up to 20 years in prison or life imprisonment if their actions result in deaths of Americans. U.S. citizens or residents can be prosecuted, and non-citizens can face deportation. You also have financial sanctions that occur under Executive Order 13224 and other authorities, where basically all of the assets in the group in the U.S. would be frozen. U.S. financial institutions are prohibited from engaging in transactions with an FTO. You have travel and immigration restrictions, which basically means no, nobody's coming to our country from there. Um, you have
Nor
diplomatic
should
and
they.
pardon me. Yeah, you
Nor
have
should they.
diplomatic and political impact, where you'll have pressures being put upon people to crack down on the group, but also alienate their allies. Then you have the operational disruption of them, that the designation would hamper the group's ability to operate openly as they do now. So basically, they would have to resort to behaving like criminals in the shadows again. Um, there's just all sorts of things that go along with this.
Yes, and so we need to definitely sound the alarm on this and notify, let people know what's going on, and engage with our senators and congressmen to push this through while we have both seats of Congress, because we don't know how the midterms are going to turn out, and yeah, it's important that we get this done, because this is one big way that we can stop the funding of terrorism. We're basically funding our own death and destruction, which is just insane to me. Insane.
Well,
So
we're not doing it. Our politicians are doing it.
correct. Yep.
The average Joe out on the street basically says, "Yeah, no, not wanting this," and the politicians basically ignore you.
Yeah.
And that
So
should be a
this is,
wake up call. That should be a wake up call to all Democrats being, pardon me, dyed in the wool Democrats to being moderates. Is your own party is subverting our Constitution and our laws here in the U.S. So, for any of you that are listening, you really need to wake up and understand what your party's doing and start talking to those people that are not listening to you.
yep. Yep. Absolutely. So here's an article, or more of like a history, historical layout of what's going, what of the history of Hamas. So really, what's interesting is the Palestine Committee. So this is talking about what we just talked about, 1988, all that stuff. The Palestine Committee spawned several public-facing organizations, most of which are based out of Chicago, Dallas, and Washington, D.C. They included the All-Purpose Islamic Association of Palestine. We talked about them. IAP, the financial arm represented in Occupied Land Fund, or it was later known, became the Holy Land Foundation, HLF, and then the Think Tank Association of USA or UASR, United Association of Studies and Research, which doesn't sound like it has anything to do with Islamic anything. But in 1993, the FBI wiretapped a meeting of top Hamas activists in the U.S. held in Philadelphia. The wiretaps show internal discussion of how to improve activities in support of Hamas within the U.S. and how to shield them from the designation of Hamas as a terrorist organization. U.S.-based Hamas activities or activists agreed that hiding their affiliation and intentions was the best tactic to avoid negative consequences. So they openly talked in these wiretaps about how they need to shield and hide those connections. This is a report. It's heavily redacted. As I scroll through, you can see it's very heavily redacted in sections talking about the association and connection with Hamas, CAIR, and those outputs of the wiretaps of the FBI. So
Fun factoid.
yeah,
Did you know that Alejandro Mayorkas supports CAIR? And
I'm not surprised at all.
Which is really strange, because one, he's Jewish. Two, he was sitting on the board for one of the NGOs that was facilitating the illegals into our country. It was I forget it was Jewish People for Immigration or something like that. So it's interesting that he is supporting the very enemies of Israel while at the same
Yes.
time claiming to be a Jew.
Well, that's I don't know if we should be surprised by that, because it seems like the liberal Democrats are capable of anything, including denouncing their own ethnicity and everything else in the name of the agenda or the goal. And as we said several weeks ago in our links to communism and Islam, as far as the way that they operate, it's the same playbook. It's very much infiltrate, gain control, and move the needle in your favor. So, moving on. Here is Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood. This is from CFR, talking about the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Now, I will give a little bit of a side note here when it comes to, obviously, a lot of our audience conservative Christian. Egypt actually at one point was a heavily Christian nation. In fact, it was like up until the 1980s, it had a very heavily influenced Christian population. Coptic Christians was what they were called, and I believe it was I think it was close to 50%. The numbers are escaping me. There is a preacher actually that he's done things with Charlie Kirk and stuff, but he's immigrated to the United States from Egypt, and he talks at length in one of the videos on YouTube about how they came in and slowly put so much pressure on the Christian faith as to drive it completely out. And now less than 5% of Egypt is actually Christian. And if you are Christian, you are subject to taxation, fines, just for practicing a different faith. So the Muslim Brotherhood was actually founded in Egypt in the 1920s. And has had a large influence in that in that part of the world for a long time. Obviously, we talked about the World War II stuff with Hitler and other leaders in the world as well. But it's one of the most influential Islamist organizations in the world, mixing religious teaching and political activism and social welfare programs. So this is what we have talked about when it comes to England. England still, I think it's like single digits or maybe right at 10% of England is Muslim, but yet they have gained so much power in the political world that they are now enforcing their views on the entire population of England. That is a clear example of how these organizations operate. S2, talk about that a little bit more in depth, of moving into a place and gaining political power, and really how they do that through these organizations.
Well, they do it obviously because we'll give a prime example. Let's call Mamdani in New York. Okay. Everybody thinks that he's just a communist, but in all actuality, he's a Muslim. And you look at what they do, not just the Islamic community, but let's compare this to the communist movements as well. They gain popularity just as the Muslim Brotherhood did back in the 1920s. They gained their popularity through the lower class populist. And from there, they start gaining their grassroots support to where they can have those people go out and actually support. And you look at what they did for Mamdani, they had 35,000 people that went out door knocking for this guy and
Yep.
convinced people that this was a good guy. So this is how they do it. And from there, once they get their claws into the political fabric, they start climbing up. You start looking at where somebody may start off as just a city council member, and then they move into the county commissioner, and they're going to be grabbing a few people with them as they go and having the support of those people as they go. And that's how they build their power base. It's no different than the communists.
Well said. Well said. This is the parallel we drew a couple of weeks ago. And when you look at that, mixing religious teachings with political activism and social welfare programs, the only thing that communism doesn't have is really the religious teaching, because in communism, government is your God. And so, but it is very much the same in the way that they operate. So great analogy and great connection there. So winning presidency in Egypt, they gained national power amid the Arab Spring of the early 2010s, but a military junta ended its rule in 2013 and since imprisoned thousands of its members. So it was broken apart in Egypt and had a short reign, even though it was still very, very deadly. The Brotherhood's influence over the Islamist offshoots in the region has diminished, but its ability to participate civically and politically remains, and its ability to participate civically and politically remains stifled. You know, I'm talking about that region, but it is has a history of violence. It has a history of conquering and doing horrible things in its entirety. Okay, so where we're going to go next is talking about the Holy Land Foundation, and this actually made it through our court system. It was a case charging several Islamic people with aiding Hamas and raising funds through the corporate entity, the Holy Land Foundation. So there was a court case that was ruled on, and we'll share that right now. So this is the court filing, the United States District Court of Northern District of Texas, Dallas Division. Here's all of the defendants, the Holy Land Foundation for Relief and Development, HLF, and here are your 7 defendants in this case. S2, are you familiar with this?
I am familiar with it in passing. I know that it was a really big deal when it occurred. The prosecution was a huge thing that caused the HLF to actually dissolve. However, other NGOs have popped up in their place under different names, still doing the same shit.
Right. Well, this is where we come to CAIR in a lot of ways too, is that HLF is just another example of what they're doing with CAIR and other organizations like that, is that they're funneling money through NGOs from the political machine, and it's going through, I mean, it's basically the money laundering. It's like they're laundering money through NGOs into these nonprofits, and they're going to terrorists. That's our government. And it's both sides. We showed you George W. Bush. We showed you Obama. Now, Obama definitely had a bigger impact in opening this up and normalizing it in his presidency, which the more and more that you look at it, the more and more you're like, oh, well, all those conspiracy theories about him being Muslim, him being born in a Muslim country, maybe there was a little bit of substance to that. Not saying it's the definite truth, because we don't want YouTube to ban us, but yeah,
well,
maybe there's something to pull on in this train.
Well, if we also take and we go back and we look at the different ties to, and I'm not even going to say political factions, I'm going to say our intelligence community. There was a big push, particularly in the Bush administration, where everybody was running around saying, "Oh yeah, well, the religion of Islam is mostly peaceful." Yeah, okay, that was George Bush. But you start looking, there's a pattern of behavior that goes on here that's been going on for decades, where you have politicians that go out there and start running their mouths about things because they're getting paid to do it. And then you start looking back and look at which one of the Bushes was the head of the CIA. That was Bush Sr.
Yep.
So CIA equals USAID, and they've been meddling in this crap for a long time. As I said, going all the way back to the 1920s when um, the Muslim Brotherhood actually formed, and then moving into the 1950s is really when you start seeing all of these patterns materialize where the CIA has had their hands in it. And I would just about, yeah, I'd lay a whole $100 bill on the table to say the CIA's got their hand in this too.
Would not be surprised one bit. And CAIR operates, as we talk about CAIR a little bit more, CAIR operates very much like a normal nonprofit 501c3, which is what they're designated as, including annual reports with transparency and all of this all fun stuff. There's Sarsour. You don't know who that is right there. She is a absolutely insane person who's currently campaigning for Mamdani in New York. Linda Sarsour, I believe is her name, her first name. So absolutely insane. And yeah, this is this is wolf in sheep's clothing, to say the least. So what was one of Obama's big moves in this? So this was D&I Clapper, James Clapper, talking about how the Muslim Brotherhood was largely secular. This is from Wired magazine, talking about Obama orders government to clean up terror training. The White House quietly ordered a widespread review of government counterterrorism training materials last month. So this is in 2011. Following Danger Room's report that officials at the FBI, military, and Justice Department taught their colleagues that mainstream Muslims embrace violence and compare the Islamic religion to the Death Star. So essentially, they went through and they cleaned a lot of the counterterrorism training that was going on in our FBI, local law enforcement, the Justice Department, and military. A lot of these organizations will share training bullet points and things like that. I know that even local agencies will contact the FBI and see if they have something that would be pertinent for them to put into their training as well. So this was a deliberate move to try and make organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood seem largely secular. And it's a very gross move because you're turning something that is clearly a threat into not as big of a threat. S2, you want to talk about the implications of changing this training and making it more sensitive to the agents or to the, I guess you could say, the Muslims that are radicalized. Oh, you're muted, bud.
It makes people stupid. It gets them to ignore. I mean, this is the equivalent to Muslim wokeism. That's the equivalent.
Ooh, that's good. That's really good. That's really good.
It's exactly what it is. It gets people to believe that evil is good and good is evil, and to ignore any obvious threat that's sitting there. It's in freaking black and white in the Quran. I don't give a crap what anybody says. Oh, you're interpreting it wrong. No, I'm not. It's directly there in black and white. If you didn't
Yeah.
mean it, you shouldn't have wrote it down.
Yeah. And so there's a there is a paper here that was written in 2016 that was given to a subcommittee on oversight about this was a hearing on quote unquote willful blindness, the consequences of agency efforts to de-emphasize radical Islam in combating terrorism.
There it
This
is.
was this is very, very interesting, because this is actually just saying, like, you guys are being stupid, like, because you're just basically trying to you know, now I have a differing opinion, obviously, because I think that those that aren't engaging in jihad are actually not following the Quran. If you read the Quran, it's very obvious that the radicals are actually trying to follow the Quran.
Or are
Which
they?
is
Or are they?
so it's a but it's very much, there's a lot of differing opinions there, so I'm not going to get into that argument at all, but it's very clear that they're saying, hey guys, we need to pump the brakes. We cannot essentially whitewash the real threat that's going on, and it's really, really scary that that we have these kind of things going on in our government. The people that are sworn to protect our borders, to protect us as American citizens, they just want to downplay the real threat that is going on. Here is another one from Judicial Watch. U.S. government purges the law enforcement training materials deemed offensive to Muslims. And this is very much just regular terms that might be considered an affront or offensive to Muslims. This is essentially like, you remember all of the anti-police and defund the police movements were always talking about profiling, how you can't profile. Well, this was actually, you can't profile somebody because of, the religion that they adhere to. But in a lot of cases, when we're talking about terrorism, especially Islamic terrorism, you do have to profile based off of that.
It's like saying TDA is just coming to the United States to make a better life for themselves.
Yes. Yeah. But all of this is worth a read. I have obviously I haven't read it all in detail, but I have read, basically skimmed through it, because it's a lot of reading.
Wait. Back up. I saw something down in there with the Soviets. Go down. There was something in there. You missed it. I'm going to have to go back and read this thing now.
Oh, here it is.
There we go.
In applying Soviet era terminology to Islamists, a parallel can be drawn between the Communist International, Comintern, and later the International Department of Soviet Communist Party, the Organization for Islamic Good Eye, and the Muslim Brotherhood. Isn't that interesting? So
they're working. They're working hand in hand. That's why they're so similar in their operations. It's the same thing I've been saying for the last month and a half.
Yep. There you go. Like, that is essentially putting that right into Good Eye, S2. Can you guys tell that he was has worked in intelligence? That's very, very good. So we are running short on time. I wanted to get to a couple of other things on this, but one of the things that is very interesting, and recently, this is an example here of our governments, and this was the Biden administration, the White House partnered with CAIR to fight anti-Semitism despite its anti-Semitism.
What kind of horse shit is that?
Is that not interesting? Because the charter of all of these connected organizations is to destroy Israel. And I don't really care. I don't want to get into an argument about Israel. That seems to be the hot button topic for everybody on the right now. Just from a geopolitical standpoint, I would say that they are useful, even if you don't get into the biblical side of things. And there's a million different rabbit holes you can go down there, and a lot of differing opinions. There are as many opinions about Israel, the modern state of Israel, the Bible, and geopolitics as there are armpits, and most of them stink. So we're not going to get into that. But it is in the charter of Hamas to destroy them, and in the Muslim Brotherhood and all of these other radical Islamic organizations.
It's easy to understand if you put it into the terminology of Zionism.
Right.
As to why they would do this. The Zionists are the ones that are pushing wars. They're the ones that are pushing death and destruction. They do have an end goal, and that is to bring about the return of Christ, so that the battle can be fought.
Right.
So
and
we have to remember Zionism, communism, all of those things. They're all inextricably linked.
That's an interesting rabbit hole we could go down. And full disclosure to all you guys, since we already got off in the weeds about this, I grew up in a dispensational church when I was a child. I have since really, through my study of Scripture and understanding of that, really believe that there's a lot of misinterpretation of the Book of Revelation, a crap ton, by some very, very well-meaning people, and it's a dangerous thing. And we're not going to get into that because that's a hot button issue. But
for instance, did you know that Israel actually sacrificed the first red heifer in July in secret?
Yes. Yep. I heard that. So
anyway, moving on.
But anyways, I have a short video from the New York Post that we're going to watch, and then we're going to kind of wrap this thing up. And I'm going to tease something else that we may actually cover too, that another thread from Data Republican. A lot of really interesting things there. But this is a 3-minute video on cracking down on the Muslim Brotherhood from the New York Post. So let's watch this real quick. Nope.
Influential Islamist group. It has almost a century of history, and it has spawned virtually all Islamist movements that we see today, from the non-violent ones to the violent ones like ISIS or Al-Qaeda. It is a group that is extremely complex. It's present worldwide, and it operates in ways that are confusing to some degree, because groups that belong to the global family of the Muslim Brotherhood participate in democratic politics, they run in elections, they provide social services, but at the same time, some of them also engage in violence, they engage in terrorism. Hamas, which is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, or the global family of the Muslim Brotherhood, is the perfect example of a group that participates in politics, governs Gaza, but at the same time is engaged in atrocities, has been engaged in atrocities for the last 40 years, and is a designated terrorist organization. Now, the US government has always found it very difficult to create a cohesive and coherent policy towards such a complex group, toward a family of groups present worldwide, including in the West and including in the United States. Are they a terrorist organization or not? Are they good guys, bad guys? Now, the general understanding is, of course, the Brotherhood is anti-democratic, anti-Semitic, anti-Western, and has views on issues like women's rights or gay rights that are highly, highly problematic. I think most people would admit this. But in the past, there have been moments in which the US government, let's say, flirted with the Muslim Brotherhood, the thinking that they could basically create tactical partnerships with it to advance geopolitical goals. Last time that happened was when, during the Arab Spring, when President Obama thought that it was not that problematic that the Brotherhood won elections democratically and taken over in Egypt, in Tunisia, and was successful in other Arab countries. The reality is that the Brotherhood is strongly, staunchly anti-American, anti-Western, anti-Semitic, and it's a group that might form tactical partnerships, but nothing more than that. Now, is it a terrorist organization or not? Now, the debate in Washington, because of two bills that have been introduced in the House and the Senate, they want to designate the Brotherhood. Is it a terrorist organization or not? This is the million-dollar question, and I think the complexity exists in the fact that some parts of the Brotherhood unquestionably engage in terrorism, some others do not. Is the global entity a terrorist organization or not? Maybe some are and should be designated, some are not. I think this is the complex debate we're going to see in Washington, and I think it all starts by having an understanding of the Brotherhood and not listening to the many people who, for ideological or other reasons, sympathize with the Brotherhood and want to whitewash what is a highly, highly problematic organization.
There is no question in my mind that the CIA is involved in this. No question in my mind. That the patterns are exactly
what brought you to that conclusion, S2?
There's too much to list here. I mean,
pattern recognition.
Say again? Oh, yeah.
Pattern recognition.
Yeah. I mean, it was said early on that Israel actually created Hamas, and they created Hamas to give them an excuse to go to war to be able to take over control of Gaza because they wanted their land to expand. So, and the CIA had their hand in that as well, and I absolutely believe that.
Yeah,
just like they had their hand in creating ISIS.
Well, and I do have some questions about that we need to dive into a little bit deeper. But here's the thing: if evidence is given to me and it's irrefutable, I will absolutely. I can change my mind based off of real, authentic evidence, and that is the reality of somebody that can critically think. It's just like I talked about the Bible. I was raised a certain way, and when I read the Bible for myself and didn't just take the preacher's word for it, this actually is not what they're saying when you look at the original context and everything else that's going on. And it's easy to let false ideologies or even, I'm not saying even the people that created these thoughts and dispensational beliefs in the church were actually doing it maliciously. I don't think that, but I think that they were just misguided, and that has spawned this massive movement of that we're end times, and we don't even know what that means when you actually read a theological study. And there's very, very differing opinions on this across the spectrum, and it's been used as a shield by multiple, including the government of Israel, to further a narrative. And it's
a control
this
mechanism.
And this is not anti-Semitic. I can differentiate between geopolitical things, and the people that are just saying it's the Jews, they're completely wrong. But do we believe that we have corruption in our government in the United States? Do we believe that other governments could have corruption in their governments? Other countries could? Right. And that's really where you get to. I am not even saying I don't believe half of the narratives coming out of the likes of Candace Owens' mouth and all this crap. I think that woman's off a rocker. But I do think that there is something that needs to be looked at. And do I think that Israel is a valuable ally in some senses? Yes. Do I also think that we should hold our allies accountable equally? Yes. There is nothing wrong with that. So, and I'm sorry that we got off on this subject, but S2
It's
kind
my
of
fault.
set me up.
It's my
Well,
it's my
you set me
fault.
up with an alley oop, and and we went that direction. But that also, all of this focus on this, and not focusing on the real threat of what's going on with terrorist organizations infiltrating our country. Boy, we're whiffing big time, and we're going to pay a price for it, big time. But
Well, we could
anyways,
start by deporting Ilhan Omar. We could start by deporting Rashid Tlaib. What's another one we could go with? I'm sure there's others
well,
in our Congress that could be.
yeah, absolutely. We could bring back the law that Obama struck down, not allowing those people to take part in our government. In any case, there is obviously ties here to Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, and CAIR. These are not new. These are not. They're not even really well hidden. They're just hidden from the people in our government, maybe purposefully. So I wanted to share this.
I hadn't heard that name in a long time.
Say what?
I said Anwar Khan. I hadn't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah. So this is something that we may cover coming up. This is another thread by Data Republican. Insanely good stuff. Muslim Brotherhood linked charity presidents advising U.S. foreign policy. President Islamic Relief USA, one of the largest Muslim charities in the U.S., is serving as an official advisory to bodies to both USAID and the State Department. Yeah, so we may cover some of this stuff. Right. So what have we learned tonight? Well, we have learned that the tentacles of terrorism are very, very vast and broad, and they cover a wide area. So it's important that we stay involved and informed in these very, very important and unprecedented times. We are looking down the barrel of a possible terrorist infiltration, or already happened terrorist infiltration of our country, and the potential of many attacks when we decide that we're not going to go along with what they're asking. And maybe that's a reason why the government's not moving on this. Maybe they're having a gun held to their head. Who knows? But I think that the things that we could do is continue to inform ourselves, continue to understand, and not just take the media narrative as fact. We need to pressure our congressmen and senators to pass designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. I don't really care. In that last video we showed, the guy laid it out very well. But if you're tied to the Muslim Brotherhood and you essentially are not a radicalized entity of it, I don't really care. The whole organization needs to be designated that way. If you want to separate from that and do whatever you were doing outside of that umbrella, fine. But the entire thing needs to be designated a terrorist organization so that we can finally get to the bottom of what's going on with CAIR and all of this other stuff inside of our government. So this is important.
Isn't it amazing that all of the countries that have basically banned the Muslim Brotherhood, they don't have near the problems with terrorism that they used to?
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yep. Very, very interesting. So, and you guys are very, 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 very alive in the comments. I appreciate that. So, thank you guys for all of the engagement that you give us. So, real quick, wanted to throw this up. Well, actually, the thing that I just showed was given by Tim Smith in submitting that. So thank you, Tim, for that submission. We're definitely going to look into this and maybe do a whole episode on it, as we are already kind of covering these rabbit holes. So let's get to the conflicted question, and then we're going to sign off for the evening. Thank you guys for sticking around. S2, go ahead and read that conflicted question.
Okay, smash that like button and thumbs up like a radical Muslim just slapped your mama. Here we go.
Nice.
You've been preparing for a complete collapse of modern civilization with 3 other families, sacrificing yourself financially to ensure the survival of your loved ones. Combined, you all have about a year's worth of supplies at a secured survival retreat. You were the last to arrive at the location. And to your surprise, 2 of the families broke protocol and brought with them extra friends and family members, enough to shave off 40% of your supply timeline. Your retreat is somewhat new, and renewable food sources won't be ready before the food runs out. How would you handle this situation, John?
Hmm. Um, well, that's a tough one. Essentially, what I would say is, if people brought extra people in, then their rations should be split between them and the people that they brought in. That would be my.
I 100% agree with that. It was going to go something along the same lines with me, is that you brought them, you feed them. And I would take that even further to say that they also have to participate in the duties that it's going to take to run your retreat. So, I
Yep.
mean, granted, food only grows in its own time. You can't rush it. Well, sometimes you can, but
Yep.
in that time, they get to work the fields, they get to stand guard duty, they get latrine duty, just like everybody else.
Yep. Agreed. Completely agree. What does you guys answer to that question, and what would you say to those families? And I look forward to seeing you guys' comments. And as always, I'm sure they will be colorful, snarky, and pithy. So, anyways, quick reminder before we sign off to join the crusade and sign up for that free Substack account. It's really a great offer. We give you the Saturday Watch Guide for free with that free account, and that gives you the week's outline and thumbnails, descriptions, and links so that you can keep up with what we're doing. And that's how you fight against big tech's ability to suppress by not telling you when a new episode comes out or when we're going live, any of that kind of stuff. That's a great way for you guys to show. And if you guys further want to show your support, we also have the Guardians paid subscription, which is on our Substack as well. It gives you a ton more content. It gives you our Signal chat, which has great information, great even funny things. It's just a bunch of like-minded individuals in one chat, and you guys are going crazy in it. It also gives you our survival guide and all of our e-mags, which will take you through any kind of survival situation, from electrical power grid breakdown to a terrorist attack, to really everything is covered in it. Don't forget our sponsors. We love them, and that includes CCW Safe for self-defense coverage. If you guys think that you may ever be in a situation with a self-defense shooting, then you need CCW Safe. I actually was at Goals last weekend and talked to Kent, who is the CEO of CCW Safe. They're great people, amazing people, and really worth your time checking them out. Carnivalt is American high quality proteins, meats that can go into your preps and your supplies, and gives you really, really high quality, off the shelf, freeze dried raw meats so that you can cook them like your everyday favorite recipes. Use Eat Meat for 10% off. Also, if you're a police officer or relative in the community with a police officer, tell them about Compliant Technologies for their restraint gloves. They are amazing. I have been zapped with them, and let me tell you, I am a pretty large individual and I can fight fairly well. There's no way I'm fighting if somebody puts those things on me. So, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys that tomorrow we will be back. Chris Randy, Khalid will be back with at the normal time, 7 p.m. Eastern. The next episode in the series, Road to 9/11 2.0. And this is kill kits, weapons caches in your neighborhood. From mosques to storage units to abandoned homes, sleeper cells are hiding everything they need to wage war on us. You were chuckling there for a second. Yeah, go ahead.
Sabotage has got a comment in there. Why isn't the CIA labeled terrorists?
Couldn't have said it better myself. Very, very. See, this is the what I love about our audience. They're pithy and they're sarcastic, and those are two languages I speak fluently in. So, thank you guys. Thank you all of our supporters, everybody that tuned in tonight, everybody that continues to tune into our content. You're the reason that we continue to bring you guys the truth and curate all of this information so you guys can digest it and share it with the people you love and people you want to inform. Till next time, I'm John. He's S2. Stay trained, stay informed, be prepared. God bless America.
Hoorah.
I was lost with no hope, thinking alone I could do it right. I'd pray for peace, then go pick a fight. Build my life in the sand, tried so hard but the walls never would stand. Storm kept coming and I sank again. But he saved me, pulled me through, gave me hope and a clear view. He walks beside me in any weather. Now I know his way is better. I was knee deep in the hell I made, eye on the rear view, trying to make a path through problems that I couldn't see through. Thought I was tough, but I cracked under pressure. Felt like a king, but I needed a savior. Dark roads, bad calls, burning my candle at both ends. Hate, pride, pain, a 2-ton boulder I carried on my shoulder. But he lifted that weight up off of me. Now I know he walks with me. He saved me, pulled me through, gave me hope and a clearer view. He walks beside